Right here in 1993, Joe Carter hit the biggest home run in Blue Jays history. As Joe rounded the bases, Tom Cheek uttered those famous words, "Touch 'em all, Joe, you'll never hit a bigger home run in your life." Although Tom Cheek is no longer with us, his broadcast partner from that day, Jerry Howarth, is still a familiar voice for Blue Jays fans everywhere.
Calls off Travis Snyder, makes the catch, and the inning is over.
I recently went down to the Rogers Center and had the amazing opportunity to talk with the longtime Blue Jays play-by-play announcer.
Dylan, nice to see you.
Nice to meet
Jerry
you,
Howarth.
Jerry.
As an aspiring sports broadcaster, I was able to get some great insight into the career and faith of this hero of mine.
And so, Jerry, how did you get into sports broadcasting?
I got in a little bit late. I didn't have really any interest to become a broadcaster. I always thought I'd be a feature writer for Sports Illustrated. That was my goal, and I enjoy writing, and it's come easy to me in my lifetime. But when I was at the University of Santa Clara as a fundraiser after I had graduated in 1968, I was there to raise money, and our football and basketball games were on a small FM radio station. And I tried to get on the radio just to heighten my profile as a fundraiser. And I wasn't on the radio, I wasn't really given an opportunity, so I bought a tape recorder, and that's how I started.
Hello, Jerry. How you been?
Years later, Jerry put the tape recorder away and eventually became a member of the Blue Jays broadcast team.
Well, after I had broadcast 5 years in the AAA Pacific Coast League, I was in Salt Lake and I applied for the Blue Jays job in '77 when they became a team. And at that particular point, they had written back saying that they liked my work, but they were going to hire Tom Cheek and Early Wynn. Early was a 300-game winner, and they needed a name, and he was a good choice at that time. But they said, keep in touch. So I did. And then my break came at the end of the '79 season in Salt Lake, where I had broadcast, in that Jimmy Williams, our manager, and a real good friend of mine, he was hired as the Blue Jays third base coach. They asked Jimmy about me, and that was my break. Jimmy gave them a wonderful recommendation. They called me in Salt Lake, invited me to broadcast some games, and that was 30 years ago.
Staying with one organization for 30 years is quite the accomplishment in professional sports. For Jerry, there have been more than a few reasons why he has stayed in Toronto for so long.
My wife and I came here with 2 boys, 5 and 3, and we wanted them to have one home, one school system all the way through high school. And we thought for our family that was the best way to go. And at the same time, the loyalty given to me from Paul Beeston, who is still here as president, and many others, including Len Bramson, who was at the network at that time, Sue Rayson, who worked there. Those people were so loyal to me that I was happy. And I always tell young sportscasters, if you're happy, it doesn't matter what level you're at. Broadcast every game as if it were a major league game. And so happiness won out. I wasn't interested in moving, and the Tom and Jerry show took over, and it was a lot of fun.
The Tom and Jerry show he is referring to is not the lovable cat and mouse. For 23 years, the playfully nicknamed tandem of Tom Cheek and Jerry Howarth broadcast Blue Jays games across the country. Tragically, Cheek developed a brain tumor and passed away in 2005.
I enjoyed working with Tom. He was here from day one. He broadcast 27.5 years consecutively, 4,306 consecutive games, which is a remarkable achievement. But Tom and I had a lot of fun together. We were professionals on the air. We loved the game. Our approaches were different. I thought that was very good for our team at that time. Opposites attract, and that's what we did. We brought the game to the fans as 2 pros, and that's what they wanted, and it was great for us. I really enjoyed it.
These talented friends educated and entertained Blue Jays fans everywhere and had the privilege of calling some of the biggest games in Toronto sports history, including the 2 World Series championships.
Well, and even the build-up to that, Dylan, was terrific because every game here for 3 straight years was sold out. Every game, 50,000. And then the playoffs and the roar of the crowd, the anticipation of what was to come. So we had a wonderful ride there under General Manager Pat Gillick. And it was about an 11-year run where the team played better than .500 ball throughout the entire 11 years. But to broadcast as a radio announcer before a full house, it doesn't matter where you are, home or away, and the audience and the applause wash in across the microphone, and just pull back and let that be part of your broadcast. That made it fun. And then, of course, to celebrate 2 World Series championships and the players getting rings, and Tom and I got rings each year, that was quite an accomplishment for all of us, and thoroughly enjoyed.
With all of his success, the long career, the people he has worked with, and the fact that his voice,
And it's high ball 4.
is the voice of Blue Jays baseball for millions of fans around the world, it's hard to believe that baseball isn't even close to the most important thing in Jerry Howarth's life.
Yes, I was in spring training in 1985, and in '85 the Blue Jays acquired left-hand pitcher Gary Lavelle. And that was the first person I ever heard really have a personal testimony about a love for Jesus Christ. And he did it so unpretentiously. I like that. Well, it planted a seed, and I started to think about my own Christian walk. What was it? I was someone who went to church and believed in God, but Gary was so relaxed talking about Christ. And then a couple years after that, Don Gordon in our clubhouse, we had acquired him, he said, "You want to go to a Bible study tonight in Tarpon Springs?" I said, "Sure." So we went up and met Barry Banthert, and Barry at that time was the head of the Trinity Bible College. He gave a wonderful non-judgmental talk on a Monday night. My wife and I were both there. And from that point on, that seed started to grow. And at the end of spring training, where we'd gone to hear Barry 4 different times, that's when I said, "Barry, I want to become a Christian. I want to give my life to the Lord." Well, then what that did, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about my career. It was about, just before the microphone goes on for the broadcast, "Dear Lord, let me love, praise, and serve you with this broadcast. Let me inform and entertain from all across Canada, wherever we happen to reach, young and old, and let this be the best broadcast I can be for others." That's what it did for me. It got me really other-directed rather than anything self-absorbed.
Growing up watching sports and seeing players giving glory to God after big wins or accomplishments, I have always wondered what Major League Baseball's stance on Christianity was. Do they try and discourage it? Do teams or players facilitate Bible studies? Or is it like many workplaces where faith isn't discussed?
There's chapel service here every Sunday. Dave Fisher was a longtime chapel director, did a terrific job, and then moved to Peterborough and turned it over to other people. But I think Pat Gillick, too, was the first one who said, "I believe in a walk with the Lord, too, if that's what the players want." And in the clubhouse, there's no proselytizing, but there's a genuine walk, I think, from Joe Carter and Paul Molitor to Vernon Wells, Adam Lynn, Lyle Overbay. There's so many Christians in this game, and they take it in, and they're there for others. That's what it's all about. And it's a good thing in a clubhouse because it's a personal thing, and that's the way the players want to keep it. And then if you're attracted to that, go to it, and you'll get some spiritual encouragement, myself included. Spiritual nourishment, we can all use that on an everyday basis.
One of the players that Jerry mentioned was first baseman Adam Lind. I was able to catch up with Adam on his way to batting practice and ask him about how his faith affects his career.
Well, it makes it a lot easier. After a game, it makes you realize that it is important, but there's also bigger things in life. And when you have a bad game, it definitely helps you get over that.
4 for 5 with 5 runs batted in.
So lastly, while I have you here, I just wanted to ask you, do you have any advice for myself, both as an aspiring sports broadcaster and just as a Christian in the industry?
Well, I would say broadcast. Go out and do it. That's what you want to do. You want to get the experience of broadcasting. You want to have the opportunity to do it like you're doing right now. And then after that, your spiritual life will take over because you won't try to do too much. You'll be happy and patient. And if you're happy and patient, let the results take care of themselves.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Nobody out here in the second inning.
And coming from a man like Jerry Howarth, I'll remember that advice for the rest of my career. Not only the inspirational interview, but the chance to be surrounded by sports broadcasters and world-class athletes. At the Rogers Center, I'm Dylan Watson, 100 Huntley Street.